So I know a pretty popular way to add value a lot of the times is to smudge. So what we might do is we might make some pencil marks and then take our finger and smudge it out. Well, that's one way to do it, but that's not really the best way to do it in a sense. I would like for you all to try to add your value by drawing it rather than just smudging it out. So what I mean by that, I'm not going to have you do value scales or anything, but I would like for you to practice sort of doing just like a quick value change. So the way that you can change the value that you're getting with your pencil is how hard you press down. So the harder I press down on my pencil, the darker it's going to be. And then I can slowly start to let up on that pressure as I go through until it sort of fades out. Again, so you can get those really dark values the harder you press down, and then you can just sort of let go and sort of ease up on that pressure. So depending on how hard you press down on with your pencil is gonna sort of determine how much graphite is coming out onto the paper. If something on your drawing sort of fades into one another, or it doesn't really go from the darkest to the lightest, you might just need to sort of start with whatever value you're at. So knowing that control and having that pressure already in place when you begin. So maybe my darkest value on something is only like this, and then I can still slowly fade that out rather than smudge. So one thing to keep in mind when we start to add our values in is that you can always go back, right? When you start to do this and then you keep looking at your image, your reference image, and if you realize that you need more of a variety of values instead of just maybe 2 or 3 tones, you can always go back, right? So if I looked at the last row on the rainbow, if I decided later on that it needed to be darker, I could always go back in. If you're using just a normal pencil, it might be hard to get some of those really like super dark tones, but we can work with what we have. And so when we start to add this, it might be easiest if, depending on which hand you work with, if you are left-handed. So I'm left-handed, and I always have to sort of be aware of where I'm starting at, because if I start in one section and then I have to move to another spot, I'm going to start rubbing that graphite all over my drawing. So it's up to you how you want to begin this process. You could start with go from dark to light. I think that might be easiest to sort of gradually get lighter as you're going darker. I started to add in, I added a couple extra details in, so I added a little bit more on the chapstick and on the hair clip and things like that. So when you get started, maybe pick a object that has your darkest values. So I could start with the hair clip if I wanted and sort of use that as a starting point, so then I know that almost everything in my image from there is going to be lighter, because that, when I translate it to the black and white, those are my darkest sort of tones there. Okay, so I've started to sort of shade in my hair clip, and I'm really just taking it one prong at a time. And some of those shapes are going to get lost because when you translate it, if you translate it to the black and white, some of these values might start to blend together, and that's okay. You might not always see every aspect of your drawing totally, but one thing that I want to say is that don't feel like you have to color every single or shade in every single part of your drawing. So on the really bright highlights that I have on my hair clip, I'm not shading those in at all. I am just leaving those the same color of the paper, so then they really stand out. And you don't always have to have that nice transition. You can have really stark highlights, and that's what will really help those create those really strong contrasts that we're seeing in that hair clip too. Another tip that I want to sort of add is if you have, if you sort of started to shade your drawing and then you noticed a really bright highlight, maybe like the one on the clip or the one on the mug that's on the right side, you can use your eraser as a tool. So think about your eraser as another drawing tool. So I have this eraser here, just a normal eraser, but it has a sort of a point on it. So I'm going to take my eraser and just sort of go through and make that highlight again. So it might be hard to add those highlights in while you're shading, because it might be, you might like accidentally go over it or something, but remember that you can always erase too, right? Because we're doing this in pencil. So use your eraser as a tool as well.